Is it Falkland Islands or Islas Malvinas? Well, the government in London on Thursday expressed outrage at an EU document in which the British overseas territory was mentioned by both the English and the Spanish names. Argentina has long had claims to the small group of islands with only about 3,000 inhabitants in the South Atlantic. However, the British were able to repel Buenos Aires' attempts to use military force to take control of the islands in the so-called Falklands War in 1983. The background to the current excitement is a wording in the final declaration of an EU summit with Latin American and Caribbean countries. In addition to the British name Falkland Islands, the Spanish name Islas Malvinas is also used. And one searches in vain for older mentions of the Spanish name in the online archive of the EU. After a spate of British media coverage on the issue, Foreign Secretary James Cleverly was compelled on Thursday to note that 99.8% of the people of the Falkland Islands had voted in a referendum to remain part of the UK's family, as he put it. Argentina and the EU should listen to their democratic choice, is what Cleverly wrote on Twitter. A spokesman for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak had previously spoken of Brussels' regrettable choice of words. In the meantime, it has rightly been made clear that the position of the EU has not changed, and the EU External Action Service said, EU member states have not changed their views and positions on the Falkland Islands or Islas Malvinas. However, the opinion continued to use both the Spanish and English names. He goes on to say that the EU always listens to and takes notes of the views of its partners. This mentioned 2013 Falkland Islands sovereignty referendum was held on March 10th and 11th in 2013. The Falkland Islanders were asked whether or not they supported the continuation of their status as an overseas territory of the United Kingdom in view of Argentina's call for negotiations on the island's sovereignty. The referendum was held in response to Argentina's increasing demands for the islands to be returned to its control. Argentina has claimed sovereignty over the islands since the 1830s and invaded the islands in 1982 in an attempt to assert its claim. The British government, as I said, successfully repelled the invasion, and the islands have remained under British control ever since. And in this referendum, as Cleverly said, 99.8% of Falkland Islanders voted to remain British territory. The result was widely seen as a clear rejection of Argentina's claims to the islands. But the referendum was not without controversy, of course not. Argentina refused to participate in the process and denounced the result as illegitimate. The United Nations also declined to endorse the referendum, arguing that it was not an appropriate way to resolve the sovereignty dispute. The turnout was 91.8%, with 1,513 people voting in favor of remaining British territory and 3 people voting against. The referendum was conducted by the Falkland Islands Electoral Commission, and the results were certified by the Chief Justice of the Falkland Islands. The referendum was funded by the Falkland Islands government, and the referendum was observed by representatives from the United Nations, the Organization of American States, and the Commonwealth of Nations. So, I mean, the outcry about the names, of course, it's a sensitive issue, but to make a big fuss out of the names is maybe a bit too far. If you use names for other islands, if you use the name in your language, who cares, usually? But I know this is still a heated topic, especially since there were discussions recently about it. But making a fuss about names is a bit of... Death of soldiers is not, but the today's situation is a bit of a kindergarten. But nevertheless, if you want to know more about British politics or British fights with others, or Brexit, which is a British fight with others in many times, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.